Before we begin, I would like to introduce you. I have, first of all, I'll tell you who you are. You are Dr. Kumar Krishen. You have been a senior scientist, senior technologist in NASA, and you have worked there for almost 4 decades, I guess. And
Yes.
you studied in India, and then you went to Kansas State University. You did your PhD, and you have a very long experience of working in the US. And you have also been visiting India from time to time. I think I've known you for more than a decade, or perhaps a dozen years, as you said the last time I remember. And every time you come, you try to help the students. You try to do some charity for the schools and for the underprivileged children so that they can study. You motivate them to take up sciences. And I remember that incident when I went to Diksha Public School in Faridabad, old Faridabad, where you were motivating students to take up science as a stream. So it's a great thing that you have been doing. And also monetarily also you have been helping people. I remember you helped some Delhi Technological University students to finish one research project, or to develop something which we wrote for Deccan Herald. So a lot of things which you have been doing in your individual capacity. I mean, you don't have any big corporate funding you, or you don't have any great financial backing that can actually make that happen. So you are doing it in your individual capacity, which is very, very commendable. So that's a brief introduction of yours, which is quite inadequate considering the long career and the great things that you have done. But considering the paucity of time that we have, this is how succinctly and briefly I could put it. So now over to you, Dr. Kumar Krishen. How have been your last 2 years?
Well, first of all, Vimalji, you have been a part of my world for the last more than a decade, as you said, and you have publicized some of the things that I have been trying to do and doing in India and over here and many other countries. I'll be next month going to Brazil for the third time for a dozen days to excite thousands of students in Brazil. But going back, you are a great, I would say, in person, in the sense that you have motivated me, you have inspired me. Back to your first question, COVID has put a lot of people in abeyance. It's like going to sleep. Yes, I have been quite affected by, just like anybody else in the world, by the COVID. And at the same time, I realized early on that my initiative is so deep all over my life. As you have seen, you came at Delhi Technological University, you came to Diksha, you followed me a little bit. So my initiative could not be stopped. So what did I do? I did almost more work than I was doing when I was present. First of all, let me give you in a nutshell. I gave more than 15 Zoom and webinars throughout the world. So that was very productive, and these are on space technologies, space exploration, utilization of technologies that we do for space, and inspiration, hope, and I even mixed kindness with it. And you have seen I have written poetry and prose and presentations along those lines. The other thing I did is I have been working, trying to help Department of Defense of India with some program, and I may have sent you that. And I gave a major presentation to DRDO. I've been in touch with the ministry, Honorable Rajnath Singh, about that. So I have been studying that, and I have been doing some research along those lines because it's a very tough problem. It's recognition of important targets or objects when you cannot see them under forests at night, etc. So that is the second thing. Then my research on dust. How do you manage the problem of dust on the moon and Mars? Now, you have to understand, on the moon, there is no atmosphere, so the dust is on the surface. But when you are negotiating, going to different places, that dust can be very difficult to cope up with in terms of, you know, the tires getting, or getting caught into the dust. And there are other issues, like when the astronaut goes out, the uniform gets, and many things. And one of the things on the moon is, if the dust by chance comes on the on the solar panels, you lost about 70% of the power you can. Now, on the Mars, it's even more profound, in the sense that Mars has some atmosphere, therefore there are some dust storms, and these are, you know, several hundred kilometers wide, and these dust storms carry a certain amount of dust. So back quickly, because I could go on for an hour on this topic, the thing that I was trying to do is to get to the trajectory of this dust. In other words, modeling the environment of dust on the Mars, not on the moon. So that, then I have an ongoing interest in doing something for the people who are vision impaired. You know, we use that term now. They could be old people, they could be people who don't have eyesight, whatever it is. So that has been my dream from the day I came here to United States in 1965 January, because I was doing remote remote sensing of moon, and I felt like, you know, we could remotely see the path and guide a person who cannot see the path, and see the objects like trees or cars or people. But anyway, that, and there, then, Vimalji, I have been very, very lucky to have students in several countries, including even Germany, that depend on my advice, particularly in India and USA, and that want my ideas on their research. So I've been doing that. So I could go on and on. So I kept myself very busy. Now, one thing more. So I got concerned about people in India, because you yourself said during the introduction that I help, you know, students or children in remote areas. I was concerned about the code. Do they have an understanding of what this virus is and how to cope up with it? So I convinced Amity University to develop a guide. So we have about 37-page guide that was done by the faculty of Amity University, particularly very knowledgeable people in the different aspects of this research. And I was kind of like coordinating that effort, and we have that code guide, and we have extensively sent it to many, many people. So now you can see why I am tongue-tied. I have been extremely busy with my own research, extremely busy feeding my research to the people on Zoom and many other internet, you know, formats. And so that's
Sir, one thing I'm quite intrigued about is, you know, people who have gone to America in 1960s. I mean, that time America was very different, India was very different. So you were one of the very few people who have seen the world changing so fast and so much. I mean, there was a time when we hardly used to have telephones, and now the technology has advanced so much. And like we are now talking over the Zoom, we can see each other. So technology has changed dramatically over past 2 3 decades. So if I ask you, I mean, the time when you went to America, I mean, that time the opportunities were very few in India, and now it's not very uncommon for people from America to come to India and start their businesses. When I say people coming, I mean Indians coming back, and because India also now offers a lot of opportunities. So if you could, through your experience and through your own observations and the people around you, if you could give us some sort of a distinction between the America then and America now, and India then and India now. What do you think? I mean, do you feel really happy and delighted to see how India has progressed? I mean, when it comes to technology and science, I mean, I'm sure we still need to go a long way, but the way economy has grown and the way things have changed, if you could shed some light on that.
I'm absolutely ecstatic how India has come up. Because at the time I came here, India was not considered important. Yeah, I mean, that's not a good way to say it. In other words, India was considered what they used to call a third world nation or something like that, very remotely. And it bothered me quite a bit because they were judging India from the economic standpoint. And being under the British rule for 170 or some years, and before that also we were mismanaged for 900 years or so. And even before that, for thousands of years, India has had problems here and there. But back to this topic. So India was in 1965, kind of trying to emerge out. It's like a seed, trying to find a way to get out. And it's incredible how India has progressed from 1965 to now. Let me give you an example. This even raises my hair like crazy. When I came here in 1965, I was, obviously in tears because I had left everybody behind, my parents in Kashmir, my relatives, and everybody left behind. So I would be writing a letter and I couldn't afford sending by air. So it would go to Kashmir in about, I'm not joking you, 6 weeks or more, minimum 6 weeks. It's more like 8 to 10 weeks. By the time my dad will write me back, that was another 8 to 10 weeks. Today, I'm talking to you. How different. Yeah. And I have been lucky because I was heading the advanced technology programs for communication and tracking at NASA Johnson Space Center. So we were doing these, we had a program called ACTS, Advanced Communication Technology Satellite, in which we try to do this switching in space in the satellite. That was kind of like a premiere. That's what, even today we are using that technology. This is like 35, 40 years back, ACTS, ACTS. I was on that committee, etc., etc. But my point is, that's just talking about communication. Look at computers, look at many aspects of mechanical and any other engineering or science. We have progressed a lot, and India has done incredibly well in most of these areas. And let me say this in conclusion, that the impression of India today is like day, and that time in 1965, it was like night.
Okay, that's
so
good.
Literally, you are talking about night to day transformation.
Okay, well, I have a sort of curiosity to ask you one thing. Sometime back I read a biography of Elon Musk, written by Ashley Vance. It's still here, so I can see the cover. So it's very interesting to see. I mean, Elon Musk, as we all know, that he started SpaceX, and in the biography it says that there were several students in America, students from space sciences. So they only had the opportunity to work with NASA. So now with private companies coming in, like Amazon started, I think Blue Origin, and Elon Musk started the SpaceX, and now the young people who want to make a career in space science, they have opportunities in the private sector also. I mean, I think Lockheed Martin was one company, but that's like a contractor to the government agencies. So how do you see transformation in the space sciences, considering that now it's opening up even to the private sector, and now there are more job opportunities for people who want to do research? So how do you see that? And also, do you think, do you believe in Elon Musk's philosophy? He believes that, there we could we could set up a base in some other planet apart from Earth. Do you believe in his philosophy?
Okay, we will talk about the second thing later, but first thing is
okay,
commercialization of space is great, and it has opened up opportunities in many areas. Space is not necessarily space. You take a person like me in NASA. I had several job elements, and one of the job elements, key elements, was how do we take the technology that comes from space programs such as Apollo, Shuttle, Skylab, any of the things, International Space Station. How do we take that technology and use here on Earth? The laptop we're talking to, you'll see that genealogy of many of these technologies in the hospitals, in the transportation sector, sector, in agriculture, in any of the different sectors of human endeavor. Many of these have been impacted to the great extent with these space technologies. So I was in this technology transfer. I have given so many talks along those lines, but my point is, going back to this privatization, people like SpaceX, we had Boeing, we had Lockheed, we had Grumman, we had many companies, but like you said, they were mostly contractors to NASA's work. Now we have independent, hopefully, spending their own way and going their own direction. So it's great. It has opened up opportunities for jobs. And I may bring back ISRO, Indian Space Research Organization, and they are now looking to privatize many of the elements of their work. And they are actively pursuing this for the last 5-6 years, maybe even more. But going back to your second question, because I could go on and on for the, privatization, but the bottom line is the way we're communicating is transformed by these companies. NASA per se, ISRO, or any other, ESA, the organization we have in Russia or China, the government organizations will be mostly concerned about elements of space program that the private sector doesn't want to invest in, doesn't see a future in getting their profit back. But at the same time, private companies can latch on, and they have. You see satellites, thousands of satellites are going right now, observing the space, observing the Earth, communication, GPS, global position, you name it. Okay, I rest my case. Now, even non-traditional companies, you mentioned SpaceX, we're talking about Google, Apple, we're talking about Amazon, and all of these companies, multi-billion, almost zeroing in on trillion billion or putting money into space. Why? Because there is so much demand for data. Data has become a big commodity. You can see even COVID-19 you mentioned earlier, the data explosion. Everybody wanted to know how that is proceeding, where it is going, how is it propagating, how can we control it? So back to your second question, Himalji, because as I said, I can go on and on. So second question, I have a concern. The way people are quoting Elon Musk, I have a concern with his philosophy. Now, I haven't read his books, but my take on it is we go on the moon, stay there for a while, because we want to learn how to recycle our resources. That gives us methodology here, water purification, control of pollution, control of many aspects, reserving resources, food production, things like that. Then utilization of resources from the moon, incredible thing. If we can use on the moon, we can do the same thing on, for example, a desert on the Earth. So now going back, same thing on the Mars. We have some atmosphere on the Mars. We can get hydrogen, oxygen, we can get water, etc. We can get methane. But my point is, going there and staying there for a while, coming back with that knowledge, coming back with that technology, methodology, you name it, psychology, even the human psychology of astronauts will be useful here on the Earth. Now, when you say that I'm going to make a new world on the Mars, I have a situation like this. Why can't we make new world here on the Earth?
Exactly.
We have 15% people right now in poverty. They don't have food, they don't have accommodation, they don't have clothing. Go ahead. So I have a problem with trying to set up a new world when our own world doesn't have what we need.
Exactly. Okay.
And
So
has the resources that we could capitalize on.
Yeah. Okay. One personal question I want to ask you. You did your PhD long ago, I think in 1960s or maybe late 50s. So you seem to be quite enthusiastic to help the students, teach them and train them. So my question is, having been a researcher, did you never want to become a full-time academic rather than, working with NASA?
Okay, my research at Kansas State University needed satellites and needed systems far away from the Earth, looking at Earth.
Okay.
And that's a technical topic. And that brought me to, I was working for Lockheed for 6.5 years or so before I joined NASA. I was with NASA for about 43 years. Now, going back, in other words, it was the driver was, I wanted to do that research, but I could not do it at a university because I had, my systems had to be far away from what I was observing. Now, going back to your question, I have been an adjunct professor at Rice, taught their courses. Yes, adjunct professor at University of Houston, taught courses there. And I stayed, NASA sent me to Virginia Tech, and I stayed there for 3 years, taught, did research, helped them with technology evaluation and technology transfer. So I was on governor's committee there, and I've been on governor's committee here in Texas. But my point is, even today, I'm linked with universities, 3-4 universities, and I am seeing their research. And I just finished about 2 months back reviewing the projects at University of Houston. So my point is, my research kind of guided me to NASA because it was the space type that I needed, that space environment to do my research. Go ahead.
Right. I think sometime back when you came to India, I met you at, I don't remember exactly the place we met at, but it was, you were mentioning about the fact that when you reached there in the United States, you had only, I think you didn't have a jacket or something, and it was very cold there, and then you had to buy a jacket. So it was some sort of an indication of the initial struggles that you had to go through. I mean, you didn't have a lot of money, you were dependent on the scholarship and things like that. So if you could, briefly tell us about the initial struggles which you and many other Indian students must have faced when they reached America and when they were dependent on the paltry scholarship they got.
Well, I was a student at Institute of Radiophysics and Electronics. And luckily, it's a long story, but I have documented it. The Honorable Lal Bahadur Shastri gave me the money to come here. So how did I come here? Vimalji, this is interesting. And if anybody will see this YouTube, they should understand what the time was. First, I came in a rickshaw. I was living in Sodhpur. From my living place to the railway station in Sodhpur, I came in a rickshaw. From Sodhpur to Sialda station, railway station, I came in a rail. Then from Sialda, I went to, it used to be called Bombay at that time, now Mumbai, in a train. From Mumbai to Marsa, I came in a ship, and it stopped in many places, including Pakistan and Egypt and many other, including some places in Middle East. But once I reached Marseille, I then took a plane from Marseille to Paris, and I lost half of my luggage, and it had my passport in it. So in Paris, I stopped for a night in the office of the president. The lady there said, okay, you sleep on the sofa, I'll get you something to eat, and she did. So in any way, once I reached Paris, then I came to New York Kennedy Space Center. Now, you're talking about a transformation. I was in the clothes that I was using in Calcutta, which means just summer clothes. As soon as I entered the airport, the customs officer, one customs officer says to the other one, we got Captain Kidd here. Because you're talking about January, and a person can become an icicle outside in 2 hours, 3 hours, if he or she does not take care of themselves. Then from there, I came to Chicago to Kansas City to Manhattan, Kansas. Reached there in the evening, and Vimalji, it was outside. It's called Land of Oz. Kansas is called Land of Oz. Manhattan, Kansas, not Manhattan, New York. So once I was there, I had about $20 with me, saved from some of the money in Calcutta. So once I was there, this taxi driver comes in. I tell him, take me to the dormitory or the hostel. He says, everything is closed. The university is closed for the winter. I said, what to do? But long story short, he said, come on, I'll take you free to a hotel. You will pay about $13, $12, some cents. And then tomorrow you go to electrical engineering. Luckily, I had said to the electrical engineering, I'm reaching on such and such date. So they were expecting me tomorrow there. And guess what? I took a bus. in summer clothes. We're talking about minus degrees centigrade. And once I reached electrical engineering, inside there was Dr. W. Capsule, the chairman, and he looked at me in shock. He says, "What's your top coat?" I said, "I don't have a top coat, sir." He shouted at his secretary, "Linda, he came without a top coat." Now, I want to leave this with anybody who sees this YouTube. I was burning with desire. I had that hot blood going. Honestly, I didn't feel much cold because I was excited. I'll be doing a PhD in USA. My parents had told me, go there, get some honor for your family. So anyway, when I entered his office, probably I had only $7 or something. But they had told me there will be $300 waiting for you. That $300, what they did, they took it off of my assistantship every month, certain number of dollars. But once I had that $300, I had 2 other students helping me, 2 or 3 from electrical engineering that Dr. Capsule said, you help him, put him in a place, rental apartment, make sure he buys a top coat. All those things were done within 1 day. And I had enough money to pay for my books and everything. So that's how in America things work out. Quickly, I just went within first 2 hours, I had the $300 and I was jamming.
Okay.
Go ahead. I'm sorry I took a long time, but
No, it's quite interesting. I mean, for a moment, I was there and imagining the things that you were describing. So, sir, I was just wondering if we could stop it here. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
I'm leaving.
Sure,
Okay.
sir.
Thanks.
Thank you, sir.
Bye.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.